I'm a big fan of the trend that's been going on in recent years where a big gaming company has an opportunity to do something cool and they just don't for whatever reason. So some indie developer says, fine, then I'll do it myself. Because, a while ago there was the Super Mario Maker, and that was really cool. And then, yeah, what about a Zelda Maker? That would be really sick. Who wouldn't love that? But for some strange reason, Nintendo never made that, even though we all agree it would be awesome. But that is where Super Dungeon Maker comes to the rescue. And thanks to Rokaplay for sending me a review code so I could check it out. Anyway, when it comes to reviewing these kinds of level editor type games, we got two things we got to talk about, which is the actual gameplay of when you're playing, and then the editor and level creation tools and all that kind of stuff. As far as how the game actually plays, it's solid. The controls are good. It's basically exactly what you would expect with a 2D top-down Zelda-style game like this. One thing in particular I really like is how little time you need to charge a spin attack for before you can release it. You can basically do it immediately once the charging animation starts, which is great, because in a lot of the top-down Zelda games, I find that the spin attack isn't very practical because it just takes way too long to charge. This game addresses that and makes the spin attack very useful. I also gotta say, I really like the sound effect for when you hit enemies in this game. It's very, very satisfying. The feel of fighting in this game is very good. Beyond that, you got a lot of your typical Zelda standards. You can pick up jars and throw them, you can push blocks, all that kind of stuff. Of course, you have various items you can get in the game, and they're all your classic Zelda standards. You got the shield, bombs, hookshot, yada yada yada, you know what to expect. Though there's not that many of them at the current time of this review. The game just came out, and there's only like 6 or 7 items, I think, something like that. Which is a bit low, but the game is still being worked on. They're going to continue to add stuff over time, so I imagine this problem isn't going to stick around for too long. Really, that's one of my biggest criticisms for Super Dungeon Maker at this point, is it's just lacking a lot of stuff. There's not that many enemy types, there's not that many different dungeon biome types or special interactable objects and things like that. The game just needs more, and I assume down the line, after the game has received many updates, it'll have a lot more, and it'll probably be very, very cool. But at the moment, what's here is good, it just feels a little bit light. Of course, with this being a maker-type game, there's not a whole lot of, pre-made content to play through. There's, 3 short dungeons in the hub world that you can play made by the developers, but that's really it. But obviously, this being a maker game, there's tons and tons of community-created stuff to play. That's where the game is, after all. And I should mention, I have not really played these type of level creation games very much myself in the past. I never actually played Mario Maker. I've never, really gotten super hard into, level editing and those kinds of things, so I didn't really have much experience with this kind of thing. I had some degree of expectations of what I would find going in, and generally, yeah, what you think you're gonna get is what you're gonna get. You have a lot of traditionally designed Zelda-style dungeons where people try to emulate the feel of official Zelda dungeons. You have just straight-up remakes of Zelda dungeons. You have some goofy stuff, some stuff that's doing a lot of weird stuff. Things that are designed to just be ridiculously stupid hard, and, the typical kind of community-created stuff you would get with this kind of game. Of course, the game is still fairly new, so people haven't had a lot of time to really dig into the level editor and try to figure things out and make really, really cool stuff yet. So what you're gonna get is a lot of very safe-feeling things, in my opinion, so far. I've played a number of dungeons out there, and a lot of them are yeah, they're fine. They're well-designed, they're good. They kind of feel like Zelda dungeons a little bit. Most of them are relatively short, nothing too crazy, and yeah, they're pretty much just kind of standard stock Zelda stuff, and this is kind of where the limitations of how much stuff there is to work with in this game really comes through, because you see a lot of the same stuff in various different dungeons, because there's only so many items, there's only so many enemies, there's only so many bosses, only so many different ways you can arrange these things. And so you definitely can feel the limitations either of the game or people's creativity when you're playing through lots of these dungeons. But over time, I imagine that problem will solve itself once they add more things to the game and people get more time with the level editor and get more creative and experimental. For what's there right now, it's like anything as you would expect. There's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, but personally, of everything I played, there was only one dungeon I played that was quite impressive and really got me going like, hey, this is really, really cool. Which is this one dungeon here where it's kind of like a micro Zelda game where it's huge. You can make fucking dungeons gigantic in this game, which is awesome. And it's got like this big overworld area, and then you go down into these little like micro dungeons. And in here, you do some challenges, you get an item, and now you head back to the overworld, and that gives you access to new areas, and then you can find your way to another little micro dungeon. And you gotta get your way through all of these, and it took me about an hour to complete this whole thing, and it was pretty neat. Like, stuff like this, I would definitely like to see more of. Not necessarily like a giant, almost like full Zelda game in a single dungeon, but things that are a little bit more ambitious, a little bit cooler, and I imagine over time you're gonna start seeing more and more of that kind of thing. Oh yeah, one last criticism for the gameplay is once you have the map, it can be a bit confusing to tell which rooms you've been in and which you haven't because there's no indicator for whether a room has been entered or not, like a typical Zelda game would have. You can just see every room in the map and they're all exactly the same, which is a little bit confusing, so that's something I would like to see fixed, but I imagine that's probably something they can do relatively easily in a patch. Now, moving on to the editor side of Super Dungeon Maker, it's pretty good. Like I said, I have not really done level editing before very much in games, so this was really my first foray into it. So I can't really compare how good this editor is to other editors that you find in other games, but I found it very intuitive and very easy to use. Naturally, the game works off of tiles, and you can place different tiles for different types of floor with different properties, and then once you have that floor laid out, it can automatically become rooms depending on how you lay out the walls. You can place doors, connecting rooms, and all that kind of stuff, and then place your objects around and do lots of stuff. It's a very, very flexible editor. You can do a lot of stuff. There's pretty much no limitations in terms of like room size and room complexity and what you want to do. You can basically do whatever you want. The only limitation that there is when you want to have stuff interact with other things through like switches and levers and things like that. There are 9 channels per room, so you can't do too many things in an individual room, but it's very easy to make whatever design you want to work by just splitting it up across different rooms or whatever. I will say that I don't like the fact that you can't have things interact with multiple different things. Like, a thing can only interact with one thing at a time. So, for example, I can't have, like, a room filled with enemies, and then when you kill all the enemies, it spawns a chest. That you can do, but then from there, I cannot make it that if you open that chest, that will then spawn more enemies. The chest can only interact with one thing, and that is the thing that you use to spawn it. So that's a little bit annoying to me. Like, I wish I could have enemies spawned by, like, a switch, and then killing those enemies will do something else. Being able to have multiple different layers of interaction will definitely open up the possibilities a lot more. There's also a lot of other limitations with the editor that feel kind of arbitrary, like how you can't place objects or items on certain types of floor tiles, and lots of weird stuff like that, like, I kind of understand why those limitations are in place, but I really think that you don't need those. It would be fine. You could easily make stuff work without going too crazy with it. I also wish there was a way to make it so that killing specific enemies could trigger certain things, because as it is right now, you can only trigger stuff by killing all the enemies in a room, so I can't do like a room that's like waves of spawning enemies that are just going to keep coming as you kill more and more. Like, you can kind of try to make a way that that could work a little bit by fudging around with other elements of the game, but it's not quite how you want it to work with that kind of thing. So that's another thing that I would like to see changed in some way, if possible. As far as what you have to work with in terms of interactable objects and stuff, like I was saying with the gameplay, what's here is good, it just needs more. There's not that many enemy types. The bosses are pretty blah, so you can't really just throw a boss in a room on its own because they're not very exciting to fight. You have to do some more with them, so some better bosses would be nice. There's many different types of switches and different buttons. You have like the blocks that switch between red to blue when you hit the switch, that kind of thing. But yeah, not really as much stuff as there kind of needs to be. And also, I feel like the game could be massively improved if things could interact with each other more. I feel like one of the reasons that a lot of the dungeons I've played feel so samey is because there's not a lot of stuff you can do to make dungeons really stand out and be unique. When I think of Zelda dungeons, they're not just about their layouts and the item you get in the dungeon and what enemies you face. Every dungeon in a Zelda game always has some kind of unique gimmick to it, some kind of special element that makes it stand out, whether that be, being able to lower and raise water levels or having some kind of obstacle that you have to constantly deal with all the time. Those are the kinds of things that really make the Zelda dungeons stand out, and there's nothing like that right now in Super Dungeon Maker. Everything is all very standard and very plain and very vanilla, and the game could use some more unique elements that could really spice things up, both in the form of just more, specialized types of interactions that the level creators can work with, but also I think you could do a lot by allowing different objects to interact with each other some more. For example, there's these exploding barrels here, and you can hit them and make them detonate, and of course you can use those for various puzzles and things, but they would be so much more useful in different ways if, you could have various different fire hazards also detonate those exploding barrels. Or there's an ice-themed dungeon, so what if you could have enemies or hazards or something that could freeze objects and enemies, and then you could turn those into ice blocks, or, lots of different things you can come up with of how to make things interact with each other. What if instead of just using the hookshot to pull yourself to certain blocks, what if you could also grab things and pull them to you with the hookshot, like bombs or something like that? I don't know. With a game that's all about, level creation and player creativity, you want to give the players as much opportunity to come up with interesting designs as possible. And so I feel like you should really prioritize having as many different ways that you can use each individual element for all kinds of different designs. That would be my other big criticism for Super Dungeon Maker, is that the things that are in the game feel a little bit overly limited, which is how they would work in the traditional 2D top-down Zelda game, but with this being a level creation game, you want a little bit more creative freedom with that kind of thing, so I think having some extra variability in terms of how things can work and what you can do would definitely be good. Personally, I found many, many times while trying to work on my dungeons that I would have some idea for a cool design in a room that I tried to make work, and then, oh no, I actually can't do that because the assets do not interact in that kind of way, so I just can't do it. Okay, I have to modify the design. What if I change it like this? Will it work that way? Kinda, but not really. Let me see. Is there a better way to do this? There was a lot of stuff like that where I had an idea in my head and I just couldn't make it in the game due to various different kinds of limitations, either with the objects that were currently available or with how those objects worked. Also, another thing worth mentioning with the editor is I encountered a number of bugs when working on my dungeon, various weird things where sometimes a tile would just kind of break and it would just become a black void of nothing. And you could easily overwrite that and fix it, but it was just a weird thing that would happen sometimes if I interacted with certain things in certain ways in the editor. And also, there were a couple of times where there was just a single tile where I could not place a specific object that I wanted to. I could put other stuff in that place. I could put that object in other tiles all around it. But this one specific tile, I could not place this one specific object. Or there was a time where I had a boss and it was wired up to interact with certain things, but then I deleted that boss because I changed my mind about the design, but the interactions were still there, and so I couldn't make the room work the way I wanted it to until I exited and reloaded, and then that deleted all of the interaction points. So just stuff like that. The game definitely has some polish issues that I'm sure will be resolved over time. Honestly, this game left early access recently and got its full release, but it doesn't really feel like a full release game with all these bugs and how little stuff there is to work with. it does kind of still feel like an early access game. Like when you go around to the hub world, there's a number of things that are like under construction, more stuff coming soon, and like when you open the game, there's a message telling you that they're still gonna be adding more stuff to it. And like, yeah, supporting a game over time is cool and all, but this doesn't feel like post-game support adding more stuff. It feels like they're still working on making the game in the first place. So it's a little puzzling to me why they left early access for a game that doesn't really seem like it should have left early access, but whatever, I guess. What I will say is that in its current form, Super Dungeon Maker does show quite a bit of promise. You know, once they add some more stuff to the game, fix the bugs, improve how things can interact with each other, and add more variations to things, I think this game can definitely become very, very cool. Which is not to say that I don't think it's a good game right now. I'd say it's fine at the moment. It just has some room to grow. I think it's a good start, but I think the game does need some work. If I could throw out some suggestions for things I think would be pretty cool, every time you start a new dungeon, you'd lose everything you got from the last dungeon, obviously, because every dungeon is like a self-contained thing. So a lot of people will give you like certain items at the very start of a dungeon if they're going to be used into the dungeon later on and whatever, and that's all fine. But you always start with the sword no matter what, and I think it would be really cool if you took that away and made the sword an item that you can place in dungeons that you had to get. And then that opens up the opportunity to have various different things, like you could have leveled up versions of already existing items, so you could get the level 2 sword or the level 3 sword. You could even do that with the various different items, have level 2 or 3 bombs or hookshot or whatever. You could also experiment with having different items. You could have like a spear that has more range, or like an axe that has less range but does more damage, you know, that kind of thing. Also, as a way to add some more stuff into the game that wouldn't be too taxing from a dev perspective, you could create like variations of already existing things. Like you could have a mirror shield as a different type of shield you can get that can reflect like fireballs and magic and shit. And you could have a version of the feather where you still get the ability to like jump gaps, but it doesn't have an invincible dodge associated with it. It's just for jumping over things. You could have tougher variants of already existing enemies, you know, just paint them a different color and then give them a slightly different attack, or make them interact in a certain way, or just give them more damage and more health. Also, obviously, of course, a big thing that I'm surprised the game doesn't already have is the ability to let the player pick up heart containers to extend their health. And really, I would think it would be good if the level editor could, like, set a starting amount of health. In fact, it might be worthwhile to just give, like, a starting loadout option, so that way you don't have to just place all the items in the first room of the dungeon, just to make that a little bit more elegant. Of course, it would also be neat if you could, like, string multiple dungeons together in a sequence and have, like, a little set of your own dungeons that people could play through, and they could have, like, a feeling of progression from one to the other. That would be nice. I also think you could definitely do something with some kind of currency or collectible system that could enable for things where you could have, like, doors or gates or locks or whatever that, like, you need to pay a certain amount of money to get through, so you have to collect money throughout the dungeon, and that could give, you know, designers opportunities to make, like, optional challenges that you can try to complete to get money or whatever. I also think that each of the different, like, biome tile sets could use more unique elements one to the other, because as of now, they're pretty much all exactly the same in terms of how they play, minus, like, one type of tile that they all have unique to themselves, which is not really that much. And, you know, blah, 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 I could keep going on. I'm sure the devs already have tons of ideas for stuff that they plan on adding to the game, so I assume that a lot of this stuff is probably going to end up happening anyway. So yeah, that's Super Dungeon Maker. Pretty fun little game. I think that it has some room for improvement, but I think what's here is pretty good so far. I could understand maybe someone feeling like it's not worth picking up at the moment, but if that's the case, I'd say maybe come back in like a year's time and see where the game is at, because I think it'll probably be in a much better place by then. Personally, I've had a pretty good time with Super Dungeon Maker, primarily because of the level editing stuff. You know, what I've played hasn't really wowed me that much, but I definitely have had a good time trying to make my own Zelda dungeon and see if I could come up with anything cool. as someone that's very interested in game design, that was definitely the most appealing part of the game to me, because I could finally see what I could do, see if I could come up with something pretty fun. Speaking of which, here is the dungeon I created. It's called the Training Grounds, and I would really love if people would play this dungeon and let me know what you thought. I'd love some feedback on it. I really tried to make something very cool with it. I spent a lot of time working on this dungeon, like seriously, I actually worked on this thing for like 30 hours to really make something cool. So please do try it out if you end up picking up Super Dungeon Maker and letting me know what you thought. You can enter the number there in the search bar to find it. But I was thinking of doing something pretty cool. The review's over at this point. If that's all you came for, then you can leave. But I was thinking, you know, for people that aren't going to pick up Super Dungeon Maker and try out my dungeon, how about I do a bit of a developer playthrough here and show you the dungeon I made and walk you through, you know, how I went about making it and what I ended up doing. That might be pretty interesting. So, let's go. Let's give that a shot. Alright, so here we are, the Training Grounds, a dungeon that doesn't pull its punches. You're gonna have to develop your skills to make it through the Training Grounds. No respawning. That's actually a thing. I'll show you that when we get in there. But I guess a little bit of background for what I was trying to do with this dungeon is I was initially thinking of maybe making like multiple dungeons, and I could like label them as like level 1, level 2, level 3, so you could play through all of my dungeons and it would feel almost like you're progressing through a game. Because what a lot of people do in this game with the dungeons is they put multiple items in the dungeon for you to get, so that way you can, you know, vary it up in various different ways. But I wanted to try doing something that felt more authentic to how Zelda dungeons are typically designed, where you get the one item in the dungeon, and then I could have multiple dungeons in a row where, like, in this dungeon you get the shield, and then in the next dungeon I could just give you the shield in the starting room, and then you could get the hook shot, and then in the third dungeon I would start you with the shield and the hook shot, so it would feel like you're progressing as you did each and every one of my dungeons. But then I spent like fucking 30 hours working on this dungeon. I was like, this takes way too fucking long to make a good dungeon, so I'm not making any more. So this is just one dungeon. But a lot of design decisions of this dungeon were made with the idea in mind of me eventually making follow-up dungeons. It's actually kind of unfortunate I'm not making other dungeons, because I do have different design ideas for dungeons, but oh well. So anyway, here's the Training Grounds. That's actually why it's called the Training Grounds, is because I wanted it to be the first dungeon. Theoretically, it would be the first dungeon in the game, so, you know, if we were to try to apply some kind of narrative to this, this would be like where you train to, you know, get yourself ready for the rest of the adventure. Anyway, so here's how the dungeon starts. We have this big, ominous, foreboding hallway as you get to the rest of the dungeon, but then we have this switch here, and you can probably guess how this is gonna go. Nope, no going through the door, and now all this shit has spawned. You probably noticed that pattern that was on the floor before. That was not there for no reason. That was there to allude to what was going to happen later. And now the door has locked, and the way to open it is you have to kill all the enemies in the room, which have spawned back at the entrance of the room. So now you need to make your way back through all of these hazards. And I put this one block right here to prevent you from getting hit from the fire coming from the end of the hallway, so that way you could, like, get your bearings once you hit this switch of, oh god, a bunch of shit just spawned, what's happening? And you could, you know, collect yourself and be like, okay, I'm ready. Let's fucking go. Oh, shit. Yeah, like I said in the description, this dungeon does not pull its punches. It is... I wouldn't say it's like super duper ultra hard, but I tried to make something where it's like you can't just kind of passively make your way through the dungeon. You're gonna fucking get hit if you get lazy and stop paying attention. These enemies are very annoying in like a good way. I like dealing with them. How they like back away to throw their spears at you. It's very good. And then you just gotta be careful. Don't step on spikes. Don't hit the fire. Ow. Like that. And then we come into the lobby of the dungeon where you can see we have all these different doors you can go to, but they're all blocked. And we have these fucking things. Can't deal with them because you can't hit them without flipping them over with the shield. In these jars, we have various hearts, so you can use them to recover. And this is like the central nexus of the dungeon, as you can tell by all these rooms here. So this is where you can come to heal, but also you have to deal with these fucking things, which are going to cause you a problem. Like this thing, I need it out of my way so I can get it to this room here. It's the only room I can go into. And then immediately we have this tight corridors combat sequence. And the reason that room is so small is because I didn't have a lot of stuff to work with. like, because there are rooms surrounding this room. So I was like, can I create gameplay in this tiny little space here? And so I came up with that small little combat encounter. And then we have this room. This is a fucking room. You gotta kill these guys to get to the end of the bridge, but there are these things shooting lasers at you, so you have to maneuver. They shoot at your current position, so if you move, you can avoid the lasers. So it's about like timing your movements to make sure that you don't walk backwards into a laser. And boom, just like that, done without any damage taken, which is actually not easy to do. I did that pretty fucking well. I've played all these rooms many times at this point. So now this is where we get introduced to, like, the main gimmick of this dungeon. We have all these locked blocks right here, and then the shield is right there, so you're gonna have to get the shield. And if you remember before, all those rooms were blocked off by the blue things, so that will now open it up. And here's a design that I was pretty happy with. So you also want to get that map, of course, and you want to see what's behind this thing, so you want to go around. And I use these dark tiles here to denote that there are traps along this path. So if you go here, that comes around, so you're like, oh, can't go that way. And now we have a door up there, but as you can see, it's blocked off by one of those things, so you can't go that way until you get the shield. So I thought that was a pretty cool way of introducing, like, the concepts of this dungeon, of, like, you gotta get the shield, and then you can get back there for whatever's there. And then I also gave you the map here, so you can see dungeon layout. Obviously right there is where the end of the dungeon is, past the shield, so you're gonna have to get some stuff. So what we have to do is now go back, and you can just walk down here because these things shoot your current position, so as long as you're moving, you don't have to worry about them. And now we head back here where all these rooms have now opened, and so now we can take on each of these challenges to try to get all the keys needed to open the thing and get the shield. This was the first room I ended up making, and I thought this was a pretty cool design. You have those tiles there that fall when you step on them if you stand on them for too long, and so here's what you gotta do. You gotta walk across these things, avoid the fireballs, and you have to kill all the enemies that are hanging out on the inside. So you gotta kill them, but you can't stop moving, and you gotta avoid the fireballs. And don't fall into the pit. Fortunately, I put some jars here for some hearts to heal you up a little bit if you need to, but I only put a couple. I put as many jars as I needed to clear the room when I was, like, practicing and testing. I would, like, do the room a couple of times and see how well I could do it and how few hearts I could take, and then I would put that many hearts in the room. So it's kind of like a difficulty rating. Like, at best, I was able to do this with 2 hearts of damage taken. So I provide that to the player. If I can do it with 2 hearts, you can do it with 2 hearts. Plus, there's also all those extra hearts in the main lobby area. God damn it! So that's kind of like your supply of hearts. Don't run out of hearts or else you'll fucking die. Which is a very real risk in this dungeon. And yeah, it requires some precise movement, and you gotta be careful to dodge all the fire and stuff, and like, shit. Don't do that. Learn the timing of the fireball shooting things. If you'll notice, I have all of these little enemies here are on the sides or on the tops. I wanted to have enemies like that you would attack downward at, but because of the way that the hitboxes in this game work, you actually reach higher than you do when you're facing downward. You don't reach as far attacking downward as you do reaching upward. So hitting enemies below was very difficult, and I felt that it was not worth it to do, so I just decided to take those out. Anyway, that's our first key, our first dungeon, our first room in the dungeon completed, our first challenge. So now we got to get the rest of them. And as you can see, we have this limited number of jars with hearts in this room, so if you run out, you run out. But that's also why I provided some extras in the rooms themselves. And yeah, those things, I put them there to just make this place like a pain in the ass. Like, this is supposed to be like your safe zone where you come to heal and recuperate, but then those things are there to cause you trouble. I thought that was fun. Okay, this room, ow. That was incredibly stupid of me. This room is pretty rough. Somehow I managed to do it with just 1 heart. I struggle to do that these days. I definitely take advantage of the spin attack here to deal with these enemies. Because if you try to swing at them, then they back up like that. So you want to hit them before they get into that range where they back up using the spin attack's extra range. This is very much a slow and steady kind of room. Don't try to rush through it because you will get fucked.
as I said, I tried to design this dungeon in a way where if you try to be mindless about it, that's not going to work out very well for you. So you got to, like, pay attention to the enemies, when they're going to throw, when they're moving, when they're getting in range and stuff. And you have this tight little space to work with in between the sets of spikes. And with these enemies that back up when you attack them, thought it was a cool design. The spin attack is very good because it hits enemies back when you hit them, but the spin attack's range is so large that you can oftentimes, like, hit an enemy a second time after they've been pushed back. So you can, like, hit an enemy, spin attack them, and if they've got 3 hits, that'll kill them. So that's a very good pro strat right there. And that's that room taken care of. Got rid of the spikes because, you know, the challenge there was dealing with the enemies and the spikes. So I figured enemies are dead, you've completed the challenge. Let's not make it overly annoying to get back. Next challenge. Let's load up on hearts again. Don't run your supply dry by taking too many hits. I don't even remember what's in this room. Oh yeah, this one. Here we have those tiles from Zelda that fly at you. And this room can be rough, so you gotta kill all these enemies and not take hits. Ow. Trying to get the hearts here can also be rough because, you know, when you're picking up the jar, you're not moving for a bit, so it's like a risk-reward thing. You want to go for it? Then you kill all the guys, and now it spawns all these switches, so you have to hit all of these. And don't get fucked by the things. Don't hit the fire pillar. I'm gonna go for a heart. Bad idea. Oh, I guess I net gained some health there. Gonna try to go for another. Still net gained health. Never mind. See, I also put this, like, I didn't put any in the middle of the room of these, like, flying tiles because they behave randomly. And I really hated having it so that they spawn on top of you, like right under your feet, and just instantly hit you without any notification. So I put them all on the side, and I had like the main gameplay of the room taking place on the center of it, so you could like see them coming and dodge them to avoid that issue. Next room, next challenge. What do we got? Oh yeah, this one. There's a simple little combat challenge here. Gotta step on the thing, and it spawns a bunch of shit that you gotta fight. You got all these spider guys that you gotta deal with, and then you also got a boss here, which is not a very threatening boss, so I was okay with using it like a boss, or just like a normal enemy. And then you kill all those, deal with him, but every time you land 2 hits on them, 4 more spawn in, so you gotta constantly deal with these guys, deal with him. Spin attack, very good. Ow, that thing spawns. Ow, again. I'm playing bad. Because if you just fight this boss on its own, you just, like, stand around waiting most of the time. So it's like, you need to do a little bit more to make these bosses work in a decent way. So I thought this would be a decent little thing. Damn it. I fucking walked right into it. I am taking so many hits. Oh, God, I'm about to die. Don't get hit by the thing. Okay. Yep. Shit. I'm being careful. Oh, God. Fuck! Oh, shit. Okay. So here's what happens when you die in this dungeon. Normally in the game, it works like normal Zelda games, where you just go back to the entrance of the dungeon with full health and you can continue from there. But I thought that was lame because the entire design of this dungeon is built on you having a limited supply of hearts. So the ability to just die and refresh your hearts and just keep going, I thought, like, that's not in the spirit of the dungeon. So what I did was I made it that this block spawns here when you die, so you cannot continue the dungeon. You have to do it all in one go without dying. Maybe a little bit overly strict, but I wanted to go for it anyway, so that means I'm going to have to restart the dungeon and get back to where I was, so let me just cut to then. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention something in this room. You probably noticed it on my first playthrough, but I totally forgot, because I've played this dungeon so many times that I didn't even think about it. You may have noticed this little path here leading to this other side door that opens when you hit the switch. It also despawns all the fire things. And when you go through here... Oh, shit, we got another one of those guys. So you can't do this room right now. You're going to have to come back once you have the shield. Okay, let's try this again. Let's not die this time. Like I said, this dungeon doesn't pull its punches. It's very possible to die in any of these rooms. But I think I'm good this time. Ow. Still bad, though. So, we have this extra room over here, like the one that I just showed you on the other side. And this is a similar kind of thing. This one, you can scope it out and see what's going on here. We got some explosive barrels there that you can detonate them, but it doesn't really do much of anything. You see there is that crack in the wall there, but you can't move those explosive barrels because these blocks here are stopping that. But you have this switch in the middle, which spawns some explosive barrels around the edge, but you have to stay on that button in order to do it. So, once again, you cannot do this room without the shield, so we're going to have to come back. I wanted to have the other room also like this, where you could walk in and see the room, and you have to, like, realize that you can't do it yet, but in the original design of that room, or of the other room, the design of that room is such that it would... I'll show you when we get there. Let's just go on to this. So this one, pretty simple and straightforward. Got this long-ass hallway here, and we got all these things. So you gotta let this pass, and then go, 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 go. And you're gonna have to do some dodging. Ow, not like that. Ow. Oh god. If they come back around, you're in trouble. It is possible to get through this without taking too many hits. I've managed to do, like, whole sequences where I don't take any damage. Come on. Yeah. There. But now they're coming back. We're good. And now I gotta get back to the other side. That spawned a button on the other side over there, so you just gotta go back and forth a couple times. Ow. Ow. Wow, this has gone very poorly. I hope I don't get hit on the way back. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That room took a lot of time to get right with, like, placing the orientation of the blocks, so it was, like, a good challenge, but they weren't overly dense, and that there were, like, paths through it that you could do. It was cool. And now we just have this one last room to get the last key. Get this fucking thing out of here. Get out of here, you bitch. Oh god, it's stuck. This happens sometimes with these things. I think normally leaving the room and resetting them fixes that. Yeah, alright. Get out of here. Okay. So this room is the one that I am the most proud of these initial rooms. I think the design here is really, really fun and interesting. So these are these switches that, like, you pull them and then they slowly retract over time. And as you can see, it spawns the key there. So, oh, but it spawns this block here, so you can't get to it. And then, you know, time runs out, and then it despawns everything. So what you have to do is, this is a long-ass room. You have to fully extend this all the way, and then you have to get back here before your time runs out. But I wanted to make the process of pulling this thing out also a cool, fun gameplay challenge in its own. So here's what I came up with. Pretty simple so far. Just gotta avoid the spikes, but then, as you get further along, we gotta deal with this thing now. So now you have to go through the spikes, but also that thing is coming. It's like, duck out, grab this thing again, pull it some more, but then it's coming back, so you have to, like, go through dealing with all this shit, trying to pull this thing out, and it keeps on coming. Ugh. And you want to obviously not get hit, because you don't want to fucking die. But also, you don't want to take too much time, because, you gotta fucking pull this thing out. Yep. Yeah. Come on. There you go. Now you have to regain some ground here, which I like. Ow. That was greedy. I shouldn't have done that. Oh god, I'm fucking up. I'm fucking up. This can be done without taking any hits. I've done it. Ah, shit. Fuck, I am playing bad. It's also because I'm talking. But then we get past the, like, starting position of that thing, and now things change a little bit, because we have this block here, and we have to get rid of it, so we gotta go up here, but oh, there's another one! And I put that there to tell you where its stopping position is, because you have to, do that a little bit. And guess what? This is eating up a bunch of time, which means that thing is extended backward, and now that block is removed, so the fire thing can hit you now, and now the thing's coming from the other side, so now you have to, deal with these fucking things to pull this thing all the way out. And you do need it pretty much fully extended. I like measured it out to make it sure that you pretty much would need it all the way. Oh god, I'm stuck on the corner. Nope. Okay, and now we can go through the way back, which the way back isn't too bad. It's mainly stuff that's meant to, like, eat up time. So you gotta go around these fire things, you gotta hit these things. Because these enemies don't really attack you. They just kind of, like, take hits to kill. So I was like, how do I... Ooh, can I... Yeah, you can squeeze past sometimes if their AI allows you to. You gotta be careful not to get hit by the fire in those positions. Go around... And you can see at the top there, that fucking wire is retracting, so you gotta hurry. Make your way back. There it is. Don't get hit. Go, go, go. I think I'll be just fine here. And blamzo. Plenty of time left. Plenty of time left. And then I got some hearts to recover with. See? That's exactly the number of hearts I needed, kind of. I needed a half heart there. But now we have all the keys that we need. So now we can go grab the shield and continue forward in the dungeon. I wanted to use the shield as the dungeon item here because no one ever does that. The shield is never really, like, utilized in that kind of way from what I've seen online, or from what I've seen from other dungeons people have made. So I wanted to utilize it and make it, like, the thing. Plus, you know, it's the first dungeon of what I thought would be a set of dungeons, so it makes sense that the shield would be the first thing you get. Now we can continue forth. Gotta kill these things, not too bad. Now, we make it to here, where we can see a very familiar thing. We have the end of the dungeon, but we have to get the big key. In order to get the big key, we need to get 3 more keys. But I give you the compass here, so you can check the map, and we have 3 chests in those areas that we could see before, but we couldn't interact with. Well, now we can, so it's time to head back. Don't get fucked by those things. See, and now you have the shield, and there was that big lobby area where you have all these guys, and they've been causing you trouble this whole time. Well, now you can deal with them. Get over here. And killing all these guys spawns a chest. Now get you your first of your next set of keys. By the way, I guess I should also mention, originally I was going to have more stuff in this dungeon. There were originally, see how the whole thing is like symmetric? I was going to have 2 more rooms on the back wall here. That would be more key challenges. And then originally I was going to have you do a whole set of another 8 challenges, now all focusing on using the shield, but I couldn't come up with that many rooms, and I also was like, this is taking too long, so I'm just going to finish it here. So let's go to this one first, because the other one is very cool. I want to show that one off last. But now we can return to this room, and now we can actually do it. So what you have to do is you have to blow up this crack in the wall, and you can step on the switch, and that will spawn a bunch of explosive barrels, but only when you're standing on the switch. So what you have to do is start detonating that one, and now you have to stay on the switch as, like, the trail goes, and you have to use the shield to protect yourself, and this can be very fucky to do sometimes when the timing on these things aligns, which is not going very well at all right now. This is very bad. I hope I don't die. This is more like it. There we go. Room complete. Let me get some health. Oh, I already grabbed the health in here earlier. Okay, that's fine. Room's already done. And it's just a key here that you can get. Pretty cool little challenge there. I thought that was a pretty good application of the shield. I liked that quite a bit, even if it was a little rough. It's one where sometimes you can just get fucked in the design there because the timing of the things will eventually just line up so that they'll hit you at the same time. And I really, really tried to avoid that happening, but there's really no way to avoid it. So it's just how the room works, unfortunately. The design is too fun, too cool. I didn't want to not do it, so it's just a thing you gotta deal with. And now we can head over to here, this room we could not get to before. Now we can get to it. And the reason I put this thing here so you couldn't try this room or like come in here and see what's going on is because I thought players might try to do this room before they could, and you could very easily kill yourself trying to do that, and I didn't want players to come into this room and get frustrated, like, what the fuck do I do here? And then, you know, that kind of thing. So I made it so that you just can't even attempt it until you have what you need to do it, which is the shield. So the design here is that you have to push this statue here all the way to the end of the bridge and put it on a switch to get rid of this block so you can get the chest. But there is that not BMOS there that's behind you, and you can see that the bridge is made of those blocks you can't stand on for too long, and you have the fire spinny things up there. So you got a lot to deal with here. I might have to concentrate a bit because this is rough. You gotta push this forward, block the laser behind you, push it forward, block the laser behind you. But at the same time, you gotta avoid the fire things, and you can block through them as well if you get the angle right. And you can also take hits, and you can stand on the thing for too long. So when that happens, you have to leave the room and reset to respawn the block. Fortunately, the statue stays there. So you can, like, keep your progress. Still gotta worry about the laser in your back, though. And, ow, getting through those. A lot of shit you gotta manage here all at the same time. I quite like this room. Go, go, go. Go, go. All right, so when you've lost the bridge, you just have to take a hit falling down to get back, which I'm fine with, you know. The whole falls, that's basically you've taken a hit, essentially, so I'm okay with that. And that's that room. I quite like that design. Like, I tried to make this dungeon, like, challenging, but I wasn't trying to be, like, stupid fuck you hard. I was really just trying to take advantage of the unique gameplay elements of this game and, like, try to do really cool, interesting, fun things with them that you don't really see in, like, typical Zelda games of, like, you know, we're not holding back, we're not doing, like, baby, you know, kid-friendly design here. We're fucking going for it. We're gonna make you fucking use the mechanics of the game is what I wanted to do here. And I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So now we have our 3 keys, we can get the big key, and now we can take on the boss. And the boss here, as per typical Zelda design, you're going to have to take advantage of the shield in order to survive it. You got this guy here that he does the typical, like, he charges, and you got to make him hit a wall. And normally you'd be able to dodge him into a wall, but you can't do that here. So you have to take a bunch of hits from the side guys. Gotta block him, or he could just hit the side of the fucking platform. Oh god, I am definitely gonna die here. Ow. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Yep, I died. Fuck! Okay, let's try that again, and let's not die this time. I'm probably not going to talk too much so I can concentrate. Ow. Concentrating super well, obviously. When he throws those forks, it oftentimes goes around the block. It's very annoying. Damn it. Ow. Oh god. Not again. Alright. Only one more. We're pretty good, I think. As long as I don't do fucking terribly. There we go. And then it despawns all the minions. No need to deal with them. They were just meant to be hazards for you to deal with. And that's the dungeon. Boom. There you go. There's my dungeon, the training grounds. I like it. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a fun little thing. I put a lot of work into that. So that's my dungeon. That's what I did with Super Dungeon Maker. It's kind of unfortunate that I'm not going to do more, because I do have ideas for other dungeons that I think would be cool, but it just takes way too much time. I got other stuff to do, so that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.